Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. If you've had your lunch and you're still awake, this is a very good sign. I told David if he'd come here last night when it was pouring with rain and most of us who had rooms at one end of the college and had to find their way back through 3 different gates with keys that did or didn't work on every gate and get there soaking wet. I said, in my day, that would have been good enough for a degree in geology at Cambridge.
I take it.
And David sort of liked the idea of a degree in geography. This is where somebody once got a degree in geography and only wrote one word, and the word was bollocks. And he spelt it with both L's, so they gave him a degree. Anyway, I didn't go to Cambridge, you probably guessed.
You didn't get into Cambridge, you told me.
I didn't know, I didn't.
So there's some angst.
Yeah, I was rejected by Cambridge. Hard to believe, I know, but there you are. Discovery is an extraordinary beast. Many years ago in the 80s, I was on a panel at CBS Network in New York, and we were asked what the future of cable television was. And it was nothing but network people in the room, and the then president of the CBS network said, well, nothing really, because the audience is totally satisfied with the audience they get on the networks. There's no reason for them to look at anywhere else. They're happy, the ratings are high. They don't need cable. And I was actually the only one to disagree, but I was sort of low ranking, so I was a bit nervous about it. But in many ways, they missed the point for obvious reasons. But the following wind, in fact, in many areas of our business, has turned into the hot breath of competition on your neck. And John Hendricks created a non-fiction channel, which at the time, I knew John very well and loved him dearly, but I was in non-fiction. I did documentaries for the first 10 years of my career and couldn't believe you could make money off non-fiction. But such was the visionary that John was. He started Discovery, and it grew in leaps and bounds until ultimately he finds and I knew all the people he brought in to help him, but he found his star in David Zaslav and turned it into an extraordinary non-fiction business that moved beyond non-fiction into children's programming and scripted programming, sports today, and so forth. So it is, he is, in a sense, the forerunner of many of today's disintermediated companies. He did it. He disintermediated the networks and created a whole new business, which many of you in this room have also done. And what's striking, I suppose, is that those of us in the networks thought we were the bee's knees, but in fact, more people know Discovery around the world than will ever know CBS or NBC or ABC, such as your omnipotence in terms of your appearance around the world. And it's an extraordinary success story.
Well, Discovery was really a way in for us, and it was a way in with great mission and great character. And it's also something that we pursued with vigor. So Discovery's in 230 countries. Anywhere you go in the world, there's Discovery. And in almost every country, we're the #1 cable channel for men. And that's how Discovery started. A mission-driven company about satisfying curiosity. And it gave us a great window to make great friends locally, to learn. And in the last 10 years, we've really leaned hard into that international heritage. Because we are a global company. We're more global than any other media company in the world. Our content works globally better than any media company in the world. And we learned some good lessons. We have on average today 10 channels in 230 countries. So we have there's no question we're the best platform media company in the world. But we've spent the last 10 years trying to take advantage of those channels, that gated community, which was really gated firmly with a lock until a few years ago, and we'll talk about how that community has changed. But the mission over the last 10 years for Discovery was to take advantage of the fact that we have all these channels around the world.
Well, I remember Hendricks and Discovery stealing many of my junior executives to come and work at Discovery. And sometimes I'd enthusiastically let them go and wonder whatever happened to them. And at some point, you got the nod, which was clearly a critical turning point. Explain that a little bit.
Well, when I looked at Discovery, I saw opportunity because I was at NBC and I ran the cable business and our content. And at NBC, we had really become a US-centric company because it was very expensive and required a lot of investment to go outside the US. Hendricks and the Discovery Company had invested a tremendous amount, billions of dollars, had taken all the profits of Discovery for 20 years and invested in places like here in the UK, where we've been for 25 years. And so I saw this extraordinary opportunity where we had 10 channels, but we had very low market share. And so we were investing 10 years ago $500 million in content. Today we're investing $2.5 billion in content. We had mostly a creative culture in the US, a little bit here in the UK. Now we have 1,500 people here in the UK. We do a huge amount of local content. We have a free-to-air channel here with Quest. We have free-to-air channels across Europe. And we've expanded our genres. And I think the real advantage that I saw was if we could have channels around the world, more channels than anyone else, have local infrastructure, that is a magical combination if we put great creative on top of it with real investment. And it's paid off for us. So in the US, we had about 5% of viewership with 14 channels. Today, we're 13 or 14% of viewership. As you look across Europe, which we've invested about $5 billion in the last 4 years or so, it's been a huge initiative for us to sort of try and take Europe by storm. And the reason that we felt that Europe was a great opportunity was because as it went into recession, we saw we have these channels and most companies were taking dollars out and local content companies and broadcasters were spending less because of the receding economy. And we felt that Europe could be the new emerging market for us. We were already entrenched, but if we doubled down on free-to-air, spent more on content, spent more on our brands, that we can get more market share. And if you look at what we've been able to do in Europe, over the last 5 years, we've grown our business here about 15% a year. And what's interesting is if you actually look at what our market share gain has been, which is the piece of data that we as a leadership team look at every day, how good is our content and our brands and how much time are people spending? Our market share gain over the last 5 years has been about 16%. And that really makes sense because most of Europe has been flat or in recession. The UK is doing pretty well now, and so is Germany, and maybe a little recovery in Spain. But most of Europe is flat. And so if you want to do better, you got to earn it. And so we fought really hard to do more local content, to program our channels better, to invest more in better and stronger creative people. But we were helped because along the way in the 55 countries, a lot of the local players invested less, and a lot of the media companies that were outside pulled resources off. And so we still feel like Europe is a huge opportunity for us. Because if we can grow 15% across 700 million homes and be in a position where we're growing in the mid-teens against economies that are relatively flat, we don't expect it to turn anytime soon. But we think that this bet of spending more, investing more, and taking advantage of our platforms, we did the same thing in Latin America, we've done it in the US. So for us, we're still quite optimistic. We're still quite ambitious about investing in content and platforms. It's just that the gated community has started to change a little bit, which requires some thought.
We've had a few discussions this morning that I found slightly strange because I'm schizophrenic about my nationality. I don't know whether I'm Japanese, American, or English.
We claimed you as American for a long time.
I have an identity crisis. In the course of the discussions this morning, there was some murmuring, polite as always in England, about American ownership. And there you are actually flying in the face of the generalizations because you reinvested heavily and didn't take the money out and put it back in the marketplace. And one of the reasons you've done so well, but there's also a feeling here that American ownership is potentially difficult to manage. And you obviously haven't had so much difficulty with the English side of it?
Well, you know, I guess it's a philosophical approach. We view ourselves as a UK company. We view ourselves as a German company. We view ourselves as an Italian company. If you go, we have true local infrastructure with local people running the businesses. We've been here for 25 years. We've invested in production companies that we own. We own half of all three, which is a fantastic production entity which Jane runs. So the way that we look at it is we're a global company. If you actually look at us, we're the #1 pay TV international media company in the world. Not only do we have more channels in more countries than anyone else, and we're more local, but we have more employees outside the U.S. than we do in the U.S. We make more money outside the U.S. than we do in the U.S. So, and we've deployed dramatically more capital outside the U.S. So when people say, what kind of a company are you? I say we are probably the best incarnation of a true global media company with a lot of work to do because of a changing world. But I think that's what you have to be. Because just like when you go on Google, it's so powerful, or on Facebook, because you see the world. When you go on Discovery, you see the world. And it's not it may not be in the most untethered way, but we view philosophically, we're proud of the close to 1,500 people that we have here. When we're here, this is our country. We're invested in local content, local companies, and I think that's why we've been able to be successful, is because we really see ourselves as a global company. And there is sacrifice that we make by doing that. There's a lot of local content we do here for the UK, local content in Germany, in Italy, in Belgium, in the US. But there's also a fair amount of content that we do where we view ourselves as local. So the decisions we make about content is maybe we would produce something. So suppose we were going to do an expedition on Discovery to the Grand Canyon. We have a global committee that would say that might do 20% better in the US, but that's not going to work around the world. So let's go to Everest, or let's go to Kilimanjaro. And so our shared content, we really view ourselves now as global. The biggest challenge we have, I think if the world stayed the same, and you never want it to, because there's always exciting challenges and opportunities for us as the world changes, because there's new winners and losers. But I think in the gated community, where all we had to worry about was how does our content work on linear and free-to-air channels, we've worked really hard for the last 10 years to grow market share, to get great creatives in place, to tell better stories, and we've been able to get that engine working. And of course, it's going to require more creativity and more failure and more success to keep it going.
Talking of both those, back in August was a shock for the cable world when Disney announced a serious drop in profits, which was followed by Viacom and others, and you took a shot for the first time in a long time, even though traditionally you've always been ahead internationally. But what was the message you got from that brief window when everybody got very, very anxious?
Well, it's a message, candidly, that we've had for 3 years, which is the world is changing. It's changing very slowly. It continues to change slowly, although I think that the investor community was thinking that it's not changing, and all of a sudden there was a voice from Disney and a voice from Viacom on some challenges, and there was another look at the industry, and there was a question of, is the industry okay? Does it have a cold, or is it sick? And I think, I don't think it has a cold, and I don't think it's sick. I think it's just evolving. It's evolving the way it did when broadcast said, we nourish the audience enough and that we don't need more, and this fantastic dual revenue stream cable business erupted around the world. And today, people are consuming content on other devices, and they're consuming different kinds of content, and there's a different kind of pyramid. You know, we produce content for 24-hour channels that we take globally around the world, and we're able to do it very efficiently. We have better than 40% margins internationally, and it's a fantastic business. But people are starting to consume content on other platforms, And in this new world, the kind of content 5 years from now or 10 years from now that may be at the top of the pyramid or more important or more chosen is going to change. In the old world, we only cared about content and how does it fit on our free-to-air and cable channels. One of the reasons why we did the Olympics for the next decade and stepped up and bought that. One of the reasons why we did Eurosport 3 years ago and now we took control of Eurosport. One of the reasons why we have invested heavily in kids in Latin America, where in Brazil, we're the #1 cable channel in Brazil for kids, is because we are asking ourselves two questions now. How good does our content work on linear or free-to-air, the traditional business? But also, as we get ready for this change, which was foreshadowed in the little bit of a shake in the market of what does this mean, is the question of how good is our IP, how good is our content, if people could watch anything? And that's a question that we stay up and really think about. So if we went in the US from 5% of viewership to 13, if they could watch anything, would we be 13? Would we be 15? Or would we be less? Here in Europe, if our average market share is 5% or 7%, if you looked at our IP and people could watch anything, would they spend more time with us or less?
I commend you for something else, because I noticed that during the International Olympics, the ratings and the coverage in England was 10 times superior to the United States, because there isn't much room for athletics, for example, on the American networks. They don't cover it. All your best commentators work over here. That's true in Europe as well. So you have a tremendous upside in some of the sports, but at the same time, you will always remember that the networks would boast about what would happen after the Olympics. They would promote their next primetime series ad nauseam throughout the Olympics and then watch it fail helplessly 9 times out of 10. It just never seemed to work. So you obviously, the advantage you've got is the more coverage you have, the better off you are. Because if you just do it briefly,
right, you
lose it and it's gone, and the impact is small.
Well, the alignment we had with the chairman of the IOC was instant. We have this Eurosport platform where we have between 2 and 4 sports channels in every country in Europe. If you think about ESPN, which reaches 95 million homes, one of our Eurosports alone reaches over 130 million homes in Europe. We're the leader in online sports with Eurosport.com, where you get your scores and your clips. And we've invested a ton in a direct-to-consumer app, a Eurosport app, where we have several 100,000 people paying us a monthly fee, where, for instance, this weekend on the US Open, they were watching 18 courts as opposed to the 3 Eurosport channels in their home. And so we built and we're looking to, over the next year and a half, get that to 1 million, so we could have a direct-to-consumer subscription business. But the alignment is that for us, the Olympics isn't every other year for 3 weeks. For us, already 50% of what's on Eurosport are Olympic sports. So we have all the Olympic winter sports where you'll follow it throughout the year, we'll build the personalities, and we'll take you right to the gold medal. And so I think we have a unique opportunity with Eurosport, together with the Olympics, together with the IOC working with us. We're already the leader, the platform leader in sports. We've spent the last 6 months buying more IP. You add the Olympics for the next decade to that. And I think we have a great combination. If you think of our company as a stool, we started with nonfiction, and we took that around the globe. And so we have the diversity of, if certain markets slow down, we're in all the markets that are still growing dramatically because we're everywhere in the world. So we have geographic diversity.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do about local broadcasters, free-to-air broadcasters? Because one thing about the BBC, and this country loves the Olympics and it loves athletics to an irrational degree, considering we don't have that many medalists. Better than the previous year, but you're going to have to find ways to satisfy a British audience. Now, are you going to brand it Discovery? Are you going to license chunks of it? Are you going to give us the 50-kilometer walk and hope we're happy?
Well, the good news is that we have the Olympics for the next decade on all platforms. And so we have all the rights, and we have rights to use the Olympic rings along with Eurosport online and on our channel right after Rio. We intend to fully not only comply, but over-deliver on the free-to-air commitment that is in each country and here. I was here in London during the Olympics.
It's brilliant.
And I think they did a brilliant job. I mean, one of the models for how to do the Olympics would be the way that the BBC did it here. The good news for us is in most countries, there was just one free-to-air feed. And so the ability to offer more of the Olympics, there's thousands of hours, but also the opportunity to, because sports is just like all the programming we do. It's storytelling with characters. And so to the extent that we have an opportunity throughout the year, the full year, to talk about the great characters that are winning in World Cup swimming, skiing, diving, we should be introducing those characters throughout the year, online, on cable, and eventually, I think, on all devices. And so as we look to fill out the stability of Discovery, we were a nonfiction US company. We're now the #1 global pay TV company. We're a leader in free-to-air here in Europe, and we're the leader in kids in Latin America. And one of the reasons why I think that's important is the world is changing. And as the consumption of content changes, there is a different pyramid for what people want to consume on a phone or an app, or if they have a choice of anything, are they going to say, I want that? And the two early movers in that market where they do say, I want that, is sports and kids. And so when we look at the Olympics, where we now will reach 700 million homes, and you look at the US where there's 330 million homes, we say between Eurosport and the Olympics, that's a huge opportunity to move up in the pyramid. And kids in Latin America is a big opportunity. And so we don't think the world is changing in any way close to the rattle in the market in August that shook things up.
But you are going to have to allow local broadcasters time to connect to their own audiences, because that's what the United States failed to do with the international athletics. If it's just about, obviously they want to cover Americans, but they don't know how to cover the whole breadth of it, because there's too many commercial interruptions and they're not interested.
But the thing that we can do is we have free-to-air channels in many. So in some markets, we could sell the Olympics, which we will do, in order to meet the free-to-air requirements. But in those cases, we'll probably partner up. How could we work together in a way that's effective? In some cases, we'll just say, let's take it all ourselves. Let's put it on our free-to-air channel. Let's put it on our cable channels. But to get back to where the world is going, there's no question it's changing. We have to change the basket of IP that we own. We need to invest more in direct-to-consumer products. We've launched 90 YouTube channels because we want to understand how people consume content on the web. We did a joint venture with Ron Howard and Brian Grazer in short-form video. We have an exclusive arrangement where we're in business with them in short-form scripted. We bought a nonfiction short-form company. And so for us, we're not sure how consumer behavior is going to change. Right now, even in the US, where there's a lot of nervousness, the universe is declining 1%. So the US business, as we look at it over the next 3 to 5 years, is going to be a very strong business where we'll be able to get meaningful returns. It may not be better than double digit, but it's likely to be at least mid-single, maybe higher, and if things accelerate, maybe it'll be low single. But the US business is still going to be a growth business for us.
Who's your toughest competitor?
I would say James and Rupert and Lachlan, because I think we see the world the same. We see the world as a full global approach. And as we go around, I spend more than half my time outside the US. I love it here in the UK. I'm in Europe quite often, Latin America, Asia, because that's where our future is. And when I look to my right, I often see 21st Century Fox. They have a lot of ambition internationally. They're patient like we are. If you look at investors, they would say, a lot of the long-term investors are going to love what we're doing, investing more in content, investing in more production, investing in sports and kids IP, investing in scripted through some of the studios that we're buying. But some of the shorter term players, and there is a break in media. There's a group of media companies that are saying, I'll make short-term numbers, I'll cut where I need to, and I'll make it work, and we'll get through this storm. Our strategy is, this is an opportunity for us. Let's invest more, we'll make less, but have our mission be that we are a stronger, more compelling company with better IP that people are watching on more platforms 3 to 5 years from now. And that's why we invested in the Olympics. That's why we're investing in production. That's why we're investing in sports. And that's why if you take a look at Discovery, Discovery is stronger than it's ever been. We're investing more in discovery, more in science, more in Animal Planet. And I think it really is, I don't know which strategy is better. Is the strategy better to hold your investment cost and reduce your other costs so you can make more money and hold it for another day? Or is it a better strategy to invest in stronger long-term IP for the future? And we're betting on the latter.
What do you see coming from Netflix and Amazon and some of the new players? And of course, Apple again with Apple TV. Do you see them as, they make you anxious or excited? That's a leading question, isn't it, really?
Well, I think they all affirm a very simple concept, which is content is the juice. Content is what gets us excited. It's what makes us feel happy. It's what makes us laugh. It's what we can share together as a culture, and it's what brings us together. And so I know we're on the correct side of the ledger. And there's more people that want content, and they want to offer it in different ways. And the other thing is we need to get, our biggest problem as an industry is we're not collectively rational. You know, as much as Apple is a fantastic company, and you know, Eddie Q is brilliant, and there's probably nobody better in building the right consumer interface, and Reed and with Netflix and Amazon, and all the device opportunity all these things are great. The distributors, the cable operators, TV everywhere. But the thing that we got to remember is every one of these things, and I don't mean to be pejorative here, but to overstate the case, it's just a device. And no matter how beautiful, whatever color it is, or how you spin it, or how you can get something to come up, or what you could see, ultimately, it's just a pipe and a device.
So you'd be happy.
It's our content that's going to make that come alive.
You'd be happy if Jeff Bezos continued on to Mars?
Look, I think my biggest issue with all of these guys is they're doing the right thing. They're building great devices with great optionality, and that has a lot of sex appeal. What we're not doing as an industry is we're not figuring out how to offer them that content with business models that make sense. Where's Netflix without our great content? How many iPhones would you buy if all of our stuff wasn't on there? And so ultimately, I think we've gotten it right with the multi-channel to the home distributors. That's a very strong economic model that's going to be in place for the next couple of years. Our challenge as an industry is how do we create a strong economic model that we all can invest in that is sustainable on all these other devices in all these other ways, whether it be Netflix or Amazon or phones or apps or Apple or BBC. And that's the challenge for all of us. I mean, if there were no antitrust laws, we'd get together and instead of the device holder saying to us, here's about how we're going to offer the content. No commercials, no brands, we're going to do it by show. If there were no antitrust laws, we'd all get together and we'd say, no. Here's how you're going to offer it. And by the way, the reason we'd say that is not because we're biased and we just want to go with an old model. It's because content needs to be curated. And as much as there's that it's in vogue to say it's great to go somewhere where you can see anything you want, random access, I'll go and I can see anything I want. When you can go and you have a choice of 6,000 titles, and I've seen it in many countries around the world when distributors have done that, 6,000 choices equals 0. We as an industry have to brand the content, brand the shows, and tell each, our viewers and have them tell us what's the great content. And I think the best platform for that is still basic and free-to-air television, because it is a survival of the fittest content. And we have to figure out with some of these other platforms how we create the right model and the right curation so that people can find the great stuff, which will create a better model for all of us.
You're wrapping it up quite well for me, but we need to throw open the house for questions. And I want to give you one last question to begin with. When you look at the money that Apple and Amazon and Google and Facebook are making, which is money that the world has never seen, not since General Motors, not since General Electric. Have you ever thought about what you think they should do with all that money? Before that, I'll go to the audience.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that they do, which is they show that for technology, the world is truly flat, and everything travels everywhere. So we go ahead on Rev3, which is our streaming video business, and when we have something that's interesting and we put it out there, 70% of what's consumed on that is consumed all over the world. It's in Indonesia, it's in Bangladesh, it's in Egypt. And so people's love for great content is everywhere. And one of the I think that we're on the right track here, because the scalability of those businesses is based on the fact that they're truly global. And we are probably the only truly global media company in that we have channels and multiple channels and content in every country in the world.
Maybe we'll give you that geography degree after all. Questions from the audience, please.
Thank you. This is Toby Seifert from Enders Analysis. That was a fascinating discussion on and opening up to us of what you're doing. The sports was a very interesting development when you acquired Eurosport. We thought, how come with a brand like Discovery can you do that? Now, what you're suggesting, what's coming to me from this session, is that you're looking at it from the point of things which are related to all Discovery's other interests and other things. There's particular types of sports, whether it's Olympics, whether it's cross-country, or it's out in the open, in the water, or whatever. So then the question is, where sports can involve so much more investment increases than you've already made if you're going into the premium football and other arenas. So is your vision of the way sports will work for Discovery one which stays with the Discovery brand and doesn't get into the extremes of premium content expenses, or what? How do you sort of what's your plan or your vision of how the sports side might develop for you?
Keep that answer under 20 minutes.
Okay. So I would say that we don't really see ourselves as under the prism of Discovery. We see ourselves as a global content company. And how do we have the right content mix so that viewers around the world and consumers around the world are spending more time with our content or our IP? And we need to be malleable. So we started out as nonfiction, but then we moved into a lot, mostly male, female, then free to air, then sports, then kids. So we don't look at something and say, is this Discovery-ish? We say, is this quality content, popular content that has super fans that people want to consume and that they're going to want to consume on TV or another device? So that's one. Two, in sports, at least for now, our view is we could have a hell of a business with Eurosport and not play that extreme bidding game for EPL or football here in the UK or throughout Europe. Now, that doesn't mean selectively we might not opportunistically pick it up, but in general, and it's worked out quite well for us, that in a lot of markets where all the dollars have gone to football, the cost of all the other sports, so our mission is everything but football. And the cost of a lot of those have only gone up very modestly. And in some cases, the buyer of the football rights have come to us and said, can we distribute to you some of our other sporting rights because we just spent so much on football. So I think our mission is to have quality content that people want to watch on any device. And if we do that, we're going to be very successful in the future. And we think our sporting strategy is don't overpay for anything, because we can do quite well with a bouquet of a lot of different sports other than soccer and build a very good brand and a very good audience.
We're running out. Kate, over there, please.
Kate Bulkley, I'm a journalist. Hi, David. So you've moved, obviously, very successfully from being a pay TV company to being a free-to-air company. You came in to try to bid for Channel 5. So my first question is, do you regret you didn't get it? And would you be interested in looking at another UK broadcaster, perhaps ITV? What would turn you on to make that deal want to happen? How important is free-to-air for you, I guess, is the question.
Okay, thanks. We don't really comment on exactly what we bid on. But if there are media assets that come available, in our number one priority is international expansion, Latin America and Europe being front and center. So as assets come available here, we're always looking at them. We have a lot of synergy. We have a lot of content. But I would say that for us right now, we think we could have double-digit and sustainable growth internationally with the hand that we have. And so the question for us is, does this help us strategically? Is this important content for the future? And can we grow faster? And so that's how we look at every asset. We do expect to be deploying more capital for acquisitions in the years ahead. And if there was a channel available here in the UK, this is a fantastic market, one of the best markets in the world. And we have loads of infrastructure here. We would probably look.
I got one more question, I guess, and I wrap it up.
Lorraine Hegacy, following on from that question from Kate, you've recently started acquiring content companies, having always been primarily a platform operator. What's the strategic significance of that, and are you intending to acquire more content production?
Well, I talked about the fact that we feel very comfortable and optimistic about our nonfiction male and female business around the world. We wanted to get more into sports, which we think gives us an ability to have a strong hedge toward the future, some very strong IP and kids. And the one area that we haven't been had a lot of experience with, and maybe we haven't had a meaningful amount of our resources against, is scripted. And so one way to get into scripted would be to build a big scripted operation ourselves. And we thought, well, we don't have enough scripted in our company yet. And so the idea of buying all three was quite appealing. We did it with Liberty Global, so we own it 50-50. It's an extremely well-run company. Jane does a terrific job with it. We just bought Sam Mendes's company recently. But the idea of owning some content, additional content, which in the long term is, in addition to all the IP that we have, that we would have some access to this other, what I would call an IP farm, and an ability to have scripted grow under some experienced leadership that really understands scripted and can develop it. And that's not inside of our company now. So I would say that the content investments is really a way of giving us some exposure to scripted and some ability to grab more of it into our company if we really need it.
You're always coming, is what you're really saying. Thank you, David. That was enlightening and fearsome all at the same time.
Thank you.